Hi everyone! In this video I'm going to talk about assumptions, and specifically I'm using the word assumption in the context of the meaning that Neville Goddard uses it when he talked about the law of assumption. Now it's really important to understand what this means because I hear so many people tell me, I assumed this thing, I've been assuming it for months and it just didn't happen. Well, if you're saying this, then you're not understanding what an assumption is. Assumptions, in the context that we're talking about here, are things that you know to be true. They are things that are so obvious to you that you don't even think of questioning them. In your mind, they are absolute facts. They are things like the fact that there's gravity, so if you throw something up in the air, it's going to fall down. Things like the fact that the earth is rotating on its axis every day, which means that every day, every morning, we see the sun come up. Things like the fact that you're male or female, or that you're an adult. Things that you definitely, unquestionably know that they are so. That is what an assumption is in terms of what we mean when we talk about the law of assumption. So if assumptions are these things that we so strongly know to be true that we don't even think about questioning them, how do we go about changing them, right? Well, what I always recommend is that before you go about trying to change anything, you kind of just stop, take a step back, and get really honest with yourself about what you're really assuming. Now, people's reaction when I say that tends to be, I don't want to spend time doing that. Just tell me how to make this thing change and how I can manifest what I want. But the thing is, when you're focused on the outside and on how to make that external thing change or how to make that thing you want appear, and you're not looking at what is causing those external things to be the way they are, it's a bit like if you're looking at your reflection in the mirror and you can see that there's a smudge on your face and you're wiping like mad on the reflection in the mirror, trying to make it go away. But of course, it just won't go, no matter how hard you scrub that mirror, because it's just a reflection. And this is the same thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've all come to these teachings because there's something that we want to change out there. So obviously, that's where the initial focus is. It's understandable. But when you notice that there is something out there that you want to change, you then need to bring your focus back to the cause, which is within you. Because then once you identify that cause within you, once you can see what assumption you have going on that is causing that external thing to be the way it is, then it becomes a lot easier to change things. So when you see something out there that you want to change, or you notice a desire for something that you don't yet have, pause for a minute and go within and ask yourself, what am I assuming here? Does it feel like it's possible that the thing I want will show up in my life in the near future? Or does it feel like that's just not possible? And let yourself be honest with your answers. Allow yourself to notice what you're really feeling, what you're really assuming to be true. Many times people want to jump straight to, I'm going to assume that I have this already. That's it. That's what I'm assuming. And they start saying a million affirmations and repeating things like, I am wealthy, and making a point of ignoring their empty bank account because they're supposedly being in the state of I am wealthy. And then after a few weeks or months of doing this, they'll go, why isn't this working? What am I doing wrong? Well, the reason it's not working is because this isn't something you can fool yourself into. You can't pretend your way into assuming something different. You can repeat affirmations all you like, but if deep down you know that your bank account is empty and that there's no chance that it's ever going to get filled up anytime soon, then that's what is going to manifest as fact. That's what you're going to see in your reality. So that's the first step. Get really honest with yourself. Notice what you're really assuming. Let what feels true to you really come out. Become aware of it. Now, once you can see that, once you're shining a light on what you actually know to be true, you can start to challenge it. But at this point, it's no longer a pretense. You're not trying to make yourself believe something you don't believe. You're looking at the assumption and going, why do I believe that? What am I basing this assumption on? So, for example, if you're in a situation where you don't have much money and you can't afford to buy the things you want to buy, and you'd really like to move into a situation where you're wealthy and you can buy the things you want easily, well, first of all, you need to notice what feels true to you. Obviously, the facts are what they are. Bank account levels are low, income is low. Whatever the situation is, whatever the facts are, acknowledge that this is how it is. Now, the next step is to notice what meaning you're giving to this and what you're assuming is going to happen next. Are you assuming that since the facts are what they are, you're going to have to continue to struggle indefinitely? Are you assuming that things could easily change in the next week or two? Or are you assuming that since things have been this way for a very long time, the probability is that they're going to continue to be that way? And this is where you can then start to challenge yourself. If you notice that you're assuming that things are going to stay that way, ask yourself why you're assuming that. Remind yourself how this works. Remind yourself that this world is just a projection coming from you, that it's all just consciousness, and that the source that is creating everything is perfectly capable of placing a new source of income on your path, or bringing you the resources you need, or helping you to learn a new skill, or whatever is required for you to be able to have what you want. And when you start exploring and challenging your assumptions in this way, this is where you start to shake that old knowing that what you want can't possibly happen. And you start to shift into a reality where, maybe there's a possibility that it could happen. And in my experience, just letting in that little glimmer of possibility is all that is required for things to begin to change. I find it a lot more effective than trying to force myself to assume without a shadow of a doubt that I am definitely going to be a millionaire by next month. Just allowing in that little glimpse of possibility, that feeling of, what if it really does work this way? What if this could really happen? It's enough to get things moving in a new direction, because you've broken that strong feeling that things definitely are not how you want them to be. You're no longer clinging to that old reality and fighting against it. You've now allowed in a little ray of light that maybe, just maybe, things could change. And that there could be another reality that you could move into. So this is the way to do it. This is the way to shift your assumptions, not by fighting with them, but by very gently nudging yourself into exploring the possibility that you really might be able to get what you want. And the more you let yourself dwell in that direction, the more the external reality will begin to reflect that. Because everything out there is forming itself based on what you know to be true within you. And the thing to understand is that this isn't like an on-off switch, that you're either completely in a state of lack or you have zero doubts whatsoever and you know 100% that you get to have what you want. That's it. That's completely unnecessary. Don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. You're human. You're bound to have doubts and get triggered when things go wrong, when unwanted things show up. I still get triggered, and I've been practicing this stuff for years, and I consider myself to be a master at it. The trick isn't to become someone who doesn't get affected by anything. The trick is to get really good at noticing when something is bothering you or when you've been triggered, and to shift yourself back. No fighting, no stressing, just the moment you notice you're assuming something unwanted, you realize what you're doing, and you say to yourself, hang on a minute, why am I choosing this? That's not what I want. I choose to move into a reality where I do get to have what I want. That's it, very gently. No fighting. So this is what you need to train yourself to do. Just very gently, right now, or whenever you notice something unwanted popping up, or you notice that there is something you desire that you don't feel like you can have yet, shine a light on it, on your assumption within, and remind yourself of how this works. Remind yourself that you have this infinite power that is on your side and that wants to give you what you want. Bring yourself back to that knowing as many times as you need to. Like I said, this isn't an on-off switch. It's a case of learning to bring yourself back whenever you need to, as many times as you need to. And the more you learn to do that, the more that new state or new assumption will take hold. And it will become your default, your new dwelling place. And you won't find yourself getting triggered and falling into the old assumption quite as much. But it's a case of just learning to bring yourself back very gently, as many times as necessary. And when you approach it like that, I'm telling you, your life becomes magical. But you have to start where you are and start training yourself to do this. It's like building a muscle. Don't get upset if you're not very strong yet. Start training yourself to shift your assumptions in this way. And the more you do it, the stronger you'll get. And the more natural this will become for you. And then the more your life just becomes this amazing experience of seeing the things you want showing up very easily and seeing things fall into place in the most incredibly perfect ways. But you've got to build up that muscle, which feels difficult at first. But I promise you, it is so worth it to put the effort into doing this. So I truly recommend that you give it a try and that you stick with it until you get there, because it most definitely beats any other approach that I've tried. And believe me, I've tried a lot of them. Okay, so that was a little bit of an explanation of what assumptions are and how to go about changing them. As usual, if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below or come and find me. You can find me on Facebook or through my website. Please subscribe if you haven't already, because that really helps me to keep doing more of this. Thanks for your support, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.